I know. He's so cute.
Okay, take it away. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you to Kelly for inviting me to be here and a lot of familiar faces. I appreciate you all coming and being a part of tonight and hearing a little bit about myself and about the work that we do at St. Jude. In high school, Brian Banks was a top football recruit. He had just committed to USC to play with a full ride scholarship. And then in 2002, he was wrongfully accused of rape. And he spent the next 6 years in prison for that crime. In 2011, his accuser admitted that she fabricated the entire story. And then in 2012, with the help of the California Innocence Project, Brian was fully exonerated of all of those charges. Shortly after arriving, this is a good diaphragm stretch. Shortly after arriving in juvenile detention, Brian encountered a gentleman by the name of Mr. Johnson, who was a teacher in the prison system. And Mr. Johnson asked him a very important question. He said, "Who are you?" Now, seemingly a very simple question, but Brian responded, "I'm Brian Banks." And he said, "Well, that's your name, but who are you?" He said, "Well, I'm a young black man in here for something that I didn't do." And he said, "Well, that's your earth suit, and you're describing your current situation, but that's not what defines you. So who are you?" When Brian couldn't answer that question, Mr. Johnson said, "Okay, well, let's start there." I had the pleasure of hearing Brian retell this story in person when we were at our national training meeting. That's Brian on stage in front of all of our colleagues at ALSAC St. Jude alongside our CEO's brother, Tom Shadiak. You might know, he's a Hollywood director. My ringer's on, excuse me. My parking session has been deactivated, so I can't tell. We were working on it. So Tom Shadiak is a famous Hollywood director who has been behind such really brilliant movies like Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, Liar Liar, Bruce Almighty, Evan Almighty. You get the gist. But Tom agreed to take on this project to tell Brian Banks' story. And as I sat there with all of my colleagues, there's about 1,500 of us. I know I wasn't alone because we talked about this after the case, that we sat there amazed at Brian's story and the fact that he could come out of this situation, which was so dark and awful, as such a positive light in the world. And Brian will then go on to tell you that who he is now is a caring, generous individual who's not just giving, but forgiving. And he doesn't hold a grudge for anything. So I sat in the audience taking all of this in, and then I left with a little homework because I felt like I needed to figure out who I was and spend some time thinking about that, as did most of my colleagues. My colleagues are here today, and they would probably agree that they spent a little time thinking about that as well. And so I had to think about that, and probably at about the same time, Kelly asked me to speak here. And as I considered that and thought, I would love to speak, but I want it to be a little bit different. And I thought, well, this could be the perfect opportunity to kind of bridge the two. I speak an awful lot at a number of our fundraising events throughout the year. This one felt a little different. And so I called in the reinforcement. So I called my colleague, Nancy Newton, who she and I have worked together on a number of projects over the years. She serves as our PR consultant to our teams in regional offices. And I said, "Nancy, I want to bring this idea of who I am to this opportunity to speak, but also bridge it with the importance of our work at St. Jude." And so Nancy, of course, was very quick to give me a lot of ideas and guidance on what I should be talking about. So when I asked Nancy, what can we talk about? First thing she said was, well, what about your radio career? You've got an interesting background on how you arrived at St. Jude. And she's right. So my radio career started in 2001, and I worked in radio for 6 years. That radio career where I was introduced to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and found my passion. So the radio career represents that passion, because not only did I find that to be the highlight of my radio career, but then I made it into a new career at St. Jude. And I said, so that's a good idea. She goes, well, what about all the cool events that you all do at St. Jude? And she goes, what about Ryan Denji And Ryan is a really inspirational individual in my life because he is supercross champion, motocross champion, and the peak of his career came to us and said, I want to do something to give back. His grandmother had passed away from cancer, and so he was motivated to do something for St. Jude. And so we built the St. Jude Ride and 5K Run, and Matt, and where's Matt? I don't see him. He was in here just a second ago. Okay, he snuck out. So Matt from our team, he's been working on that partnership together. And not only did it become this really incredible event, but then it branched into this partnership with Feld Entertainment and has just become something that we never could have imagined. Or maybe it's the relationship that we've developed with the Golden Globes and Hollywood Foreign Press Association. So many different events and things that we've been able to do that kind of display what my creative side is and the hardworking aspects. But then she said, well, what about your family? Your family is a big part of it, your kids. I changed the slide last night because my husband said, well, you can't just put it as kids. You've got a family, right? And so my husband's here. I said, all right, fine. I'm not changing the picture. What about your family? And my kids are such a big part of what I do. I mean, my husband's here today. My kids attend a lot of St. Jude fundraising events. But when they were born, that changed the game for me. I understand how fragile life is and how important raising children and how important their health is to me. And so that really represented just the love of my life. And she said, but you also have a personal story. And what about your dad? And my dad in 2016 was diagnosed with brain tumor called glioblastoma. When he was diagnosed, I knew that wasn't good because I had encountered so many St. Jude patients that have been diagnosed with the same disease. And that broke my heart. And then he passed away just 3 short months later. And while I was sad, I took a lot of comfort in the fact that St. Jude is studying that disease. And I know that they'll make a difference for the next family. And while my dad had 61 years, which might seem short to some, but when a patient who's a child is diagnosed with that disease, that's unacceptable. And so that really speaks to the dedication of the work that I do. And then Nancy kind of closed it off and she's like, well, you can't really talk about the local impact without talking about the patients, the local patients at St. Jude. So I looked at this is Grant the Great. He's my buddy from Iowa. And that's his sister, Nora. Nora was actually born in Memphis while Grant was undergoing treatment for a brain tumor called ATRT. And so Mom and Dad called Nora their Southern Belle. But then there's Marit and Dylan and Connor and Abby and so many more patients that have influenced the work that I do and really serve as that inspiration and have helped me to see an empathetic side of things. So I spent some time thinking on this, and it's like all good things, and there's a lot that have built up to it. And so I got off the phone with Nancy, and I sat there for a minute, kind of staring off into space, and then I turned around, and this is what I saw. That's my desk, and I promise you, when you turn the other way, it's a disaster. Covered with papers. But then I looked at it, and I thought, well, all of the things that Nancy talked about and encouraged me to speak about were reflected right behind me as if they're kind of like my backup and they're pushing me forward every single day. So you see my dad over here, my family, you see Ryan Bengianovidi's box. Over here there's 3 pictures that I hold really near and dear to my heart, and that's Connor, Dylan, and then Grant. Those are 3 patients that we lost. They're in my heart every single day, pushing us forward to do the work that we do. And then, of course, there's a 2005 March Employee of the Month Award from Clear Channel Radio. I almost brought it so you could take pictures. But as I looked at this and as I saw that, like, they really are a part of me, and they really help to inspire me on a daily basis. And so I think it's easy to say that, I'm Amanda Cahow and I'm the St. Jude gal, but all of these experiences are leading here. So I think it's easy to define who I am. So if you're thinking about Brian Banks and who are you, it's easy to define who I am by what I do. But what I do is defined by the experiences that guide me here. So the passion, the dedication, the hard work, the creative, the love, and then the empathetic piece. So all of that is bringing here in. All of those experiences are helping to guide me into what I can call a career. So we have a brilliant chief marketing officer. Her name is Emily Cahow. And when she joined St. Jude, she was the very first chief marketing officer that we ever had as an organization. She often will describe our work in this Michael Eisner quote: "A brand is a living entity, and it's enriched or undermined cumulatively over time, the product of 1,000 small gestures." And I thought of that, and that could be an easy way for us to describe our work at St. Jude, right? There's lots of different ways that people can interact as a donor and as a supporter. But you can also think of that as the inspiration behind your life, right? All of these thousands of interactions with people and relationships, and they're all serving as that experience and that inspiration to do what you're doing. And so I've done a lot of research, not a ton of research, but a little bit of research, and I feel all of a sudden like ill-prepared because I've got research people in the room. Okay. But I was really struck because inspiration comes from the Latin for inspiritus, and that means to breathe into. And it's like inspiration is just breathing a life into the work that you do. And if you really want to get deep and you're religious, folks will say that it's divine as well. And so I think of the inspiration, and we can't really understand who we are until we know what's inspiring us to do what we do. And so I guess, what do I know about inspiration? Well, I do know that inspiration is the linchpin to the success of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Our ability to inspire people is what motivates them to give or to fundraise, to volunteer, and to advocate. If you study inspiration or motivation, there are two different ways to think about it. So you can think of the extrinsic, like people that are motivated by a result of some sort. And then there's also the intrinsic, the people that are motivated by the fact that it feels good or they feel like it's the right thing to do. And so we certainly leverage both as an organization, the extrinsic, right? We're going to incentivize a runner to participate in a marathon and fundraise for St. Jude by giving them maybe VIP parking if they fundraise a certain amount, or maybe we'll give them a sweet water bottle. But really, the majority of the work that we do is driven by the intrinsic, by someone that feels like they have to do it, like it's the right thing to do. And so for my team, it's our job every single day to unlock that, figure out a way to unlock the inspiration through what we do. And on a local level, you know, we're fundraisers, and one of the main reasons for us to do that fundraising work is through events. Kelly knows she's a part of the Ben Lieber Golf Celebration event as a committee member. But events for us are an important component to the work that we do because it gives people an opportunity to experience our mission. Not every single person that comes into the door of one of our galas is ever going to get to experience St. Jude and go to Memphis and tour the hospital. So it's our job to bring the hospital to them, to give them that experience. And so we do this through a number of different ways, but storytelling is the key to that. So here's some of the ways that we use storytell at our events. We have speakers. So our patients, we often say that no one can tell the St. Jude story like our patients and families that have lived and breathed it. They tell stories in such a compelling way that motivates and inspires people. We might have a community leader come in because that peer endorsement of our work is important to certain individuals. Here in Minneapolis, mayors say he has benefited from being associated to our cause is important. We might also have a hospital representative. I speak at a lot of our local fundraising events, sharing the really critical hospital updates. The fact that we're building a $412 million research tower on campus right now. People want to know that their money is going where they want it to go. We also utilize written communication. So we'll share personal stories via email. We might do that pre-event. We might do it throughout the fundraising process as encouragement of them to continue to keep fundraising. Post-event, we might also use really important stories to tell through the written communication at the events. But then the videos. Videos are such a touching way to ignite a sense of emotion within someone. And so we'll share videos live at events throughout the fundraising process. And one of the most exciting things for us now is to leveraging that technology and innovation that has come from technology. Virtual reality for us has been such an important way to tell the St. Jude story. So you put on those VR goggles and walk through the doors of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Or even better yet, you can experience a No More Chemo Party, which is a moment that every family at St. Jude hopes and wishes for. It's that last chemotherapy treatment that a family will experience, and we throw a big old party. And you get to put the headset on and stand in the room with our patients and our families as they're experiencing that moment, throwing confetti and singing a fun song. We've got a couple of key categories that we focus on. These aren't all of them, but these are some of the big ones. You know, we tell our story about our legacy and how rich that story is. It also allows our donors the time to reflect on what their legacy might be. We talk about the research, like I shared with you. For many patients, or for many donors rather, it's important for them to hear that our survival rate has gone from 20% to 80% on childhood cancer, but that we won't stop until no child dies from cancer. And we also, I show our patients, many people as they watch our stories about our patients, they'll think about their own families and reflect on that this could be their neighbor, their kid's friend, or heaven forbid, their own child. And so it allows us an opportunity to tap into it. You know, we of course want to take into account the audience, the time frame that we have, and other of the programmatic pieces, but all of these allow us to tell that story in a rich and authentic way. So I wanted to share with you a couple of videos, and I might enlist Ellen in help with this because I don't work on a Mac, and this, so I know I need to hit escape. I want to. So first I want to show the legacy video. So if you go with me, I'm going to show you two videos. And one is to demonstrate our legacy.
Help me find my way in life, and I will build you a shrine. This was the promise made by my father, a struggling young entertainer named Danny Thomas, who prayed to St. Jude Fabulous, the patron saint of hopeless causes. Success did come his way, and the shrine that was promised became St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, a place that has changed the way the world treats childhood cancer and other deadly diseases. When the hospital opened in 1962, my father donated a 15-foot white marble statue of St. Jude. He unveiled it at the hospital's entrance as a symbol of hope for patients and families coming through our front doors.
Here we go!
The statue's cornerstone also contained a special donation of 75 cents, given to my father years earlier by a young boy who just wanted to help. The boy's name was Billy Johnson. He was blind, and he brought his coins tucked in an envelope as he struggled to reach the stage the day my father visited the Peoria State Hospital in Illinois.
The crowd was making whistling noises and shouting, and I kept shouting all the louder, Danny Thomas, I got some money for the poor sick kids. And I kept yelling until he heard me. And then I finally got to him, and I said, I got something for you, Danny, and I whipped the envelope up and gave it to him. And he was so visibly touched that he started crying. This is the cornerstone, man. This is where the money is.
More than 50 years later, Billy Johnson visited the statue of St. Jude for the very first time. For half a century, this statue has stood in front of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, offering hope to the world's sickest children. Today, it symbolizes the very best care, where no family ever pays St. Jude for anything, where researchers are working to find the answers to the deadliest diseases. Tomorrow, with your help, we will find the cures to save every child, finally fulfilling the dream that no child should die unborn life. Join our mission and become part of the dream.
Back in that time, there was just a lot of fun things going on.
What are you painting, Tess?
Okay, let me see your spin. We had 3 girls and our young son at the time. Okay, Tess. Gotta use 2 hands when you get. And they were all very young, just full of joy. But we realized that Tess was kind of under the weather, and we knew something was wrong because Tess wasn't feeling right.
Tess started complaining of leg and back pain. So we took her in to our pediatrician. They did some blood work, which showed nothing major.
This way.
So we ordered some scans, bone scan, CAT scan, things like that. Still inconclusive, sent us to St. Jude just because he didn't have any other ideas. And so we went to St. Jude in January 2009, and they did some more testing and found a grape-sized tumor in her adrenal gland. And they were able to diagnose her with stage 4 high-risk neuroblastoma. They had told us 20 to 30% chance of survival. So 50% chance she would make it through the year. And then if she survived that, then there was 50% chance that she would make it another year. So the statistics were not good.
I just kind of felt shocked. I wasn't quite sure what to think next.
Do you want to play this ammo some more?
She was fighting for her life, and we were not sure that she would make it. So even getting to her birthday, when she was 3 weeks in treatment, we thought, okay, this could be the last one. Those days, they're blurred. Maybe we're still just thinking, this is our new life, and we're going to do whatever it takes to save Tess.
You're not gonna have any hair when we're done.
Tess, the hair fairy's gonna get so much hair tonight.
Woo, baby!
Tess, you look beautiful.
It was honestly just surreal.
This room is too big.
The room is too big. I wonder where she is.
And I remember how significant the treatment was. And so it was just, we were surviving, doing what we needed to do to help Tess endure one more day.
We found her.
To see her there, her eyes were so deep set and her skin color was so bad and she was completely wiped out.
We were blessed to be able to put our daughter in the best place in this world to treat her. They really take every burden away from you, which allows you to just really focus on the treatment. So it's amazing.
Her last treatment was July of 2010. July 4th, 2010. She took her last cancer-related pill. So that's our ultimate Independence Day. After what she's gone through, Tess is a miracle. She's brave and she is cured. And now cured is our favorite word.
What grade?
6th grade.
What's your favorite subject and why?
Right now, my favorite subject is reading because we're reading a really good book.
What's it about?
this guy, he fell, and then he went to the emergency room because it was so bad, and then they found out he had leukemia.
St. Jude, to me, as a mom, how do you describe it? It was a light in our darkness.
We were directly impacted by those research breakthroughs. We were in the hospital for about a year and a half straight. 3 or 4 months into that, they had totally changed the protocol because of another huge breakthrough, which significantly improved her prognosis and cut almost a year off her treatment plan.
When you look at the numbers, it didn't look good. So the fact that their research never stops meant life for our family.
My family is living proof. The research counts. And so we are eternally grateful.
My daughter's life, that was a gift that St. Jude was able to provide for us. And we're just really thankful that our family's whole.
Amazing. That's amazing.
We're not in. I'm glad you like that. I had a hard time composing myself after watching it last night, so I'm doing all right here. Because no matter how many times you watch those videos, they still touch your heart. And that, I can speak on behalf of my team, and I think they would all agree, because 95% of them are here right now, that when we get it right, you know, when we tap into the inspiration that brings people to us and can motivate them to do things, we see the most extraordinary display of human compassion that could ever exist. And so I want to leave you with that. So when we can story tell, when we can get all that right, we encounter these beautiful people. So this is my friend Henry. Henry is a 2-time cancer survivor himself, had cancer as a teenager and then later in life. And in 2012, we awarded Henry with our National Volunteer of the Year award. And Henry, when December rolls around, it used to be springtime, but now when December rolls around, Henry becomes an honorary member of our staff. And he puts on his snakeskin cowboy boots, straps on his Danny Thomas belt buckle, loads up his truck with gas. He lives in Huron, South Dakota. And he travels to at minimum 5 radio events with us in a year. We've done the math, and Henry we've estimated he puts on 2,500 miles a year for us, traveling to those events. Over the course of his support of St. Jude, he's been at 88 radiothons and traveled more than 50,000 miles on our behalf to support the kids of St. Jude. And beyond that, he'll be this Saturday at our St. Jude Walk Run, Twin Cities at US Bank Stadium, and he comes to a number of our different dinner events throughout the year. In the center are Ed and Debbie Witchin. When Ed and Debbie's son Dylan was going into his freshman year of high school at Anoka High School, he was practicing with the Anoka Tornadoes, getting ready for fall football, and he took a tackle that didn't feel quite right. His arm went numb, and he called Dad and said, that didn't feel right, my arm is numb. And Dad said, well, I'll be right there. And when Ed pulled up to the football field, Dylan was leaving an ambulance. And they found out later on that day that their son had a brain tumor. They asked Dylan where he wanted to receive his treatment, and Dylan selected St. Jude. And when he got to St. Jude, he found that it looked like a Chuck E. Cheese's, I think is what he described it. That kids were having fun and they were enjoying themselves, and that this cancer business is going to be a piece of cake. And it turned out to be harder than he thought it would be. About a week before his 16th birthday, he learned the news that his cancer was terminal. And later that week, he was scheduled to speak at our St. Jude walk and came to the event. We didn't know if he would, but he decided that he really felt compelled to speak. And throughout his speech, he talked about all the other kids at St. Jude that were suffering needlessly, and that we needed to continue to fight for those kids that are at St. Jude. Never once mentioned himself. A true extension of Dylan and a true embodiment of his selfless manner. Then he really asked Ed and Debbie to carry on in his name and to continue to work hard and advocating for St. Jude and fundraising. And they heeded that call. Dylan passed away in June of 2010. And Ed and Debbie went on to continue to fundraise in his name and to speak at darn near every event that we have in the Twin Cities. So you'll see them at every event. You'll see them at the walk this Saturday. We have a dinner gala next Thursday that they'll be at. We've done the math on them as well. And on average, they raise about $100,000 for St. Jude a year. Not only are they attending all of our events and speaking at those events, but they have their own events benefiting St. Jude. And then there's our guy, Brody. So Brody decided to speak to his class about his hero, Ryan Dungey. So if you can see in the bottom right corner, there's a beautiful display showing all of the accolades that Ryan has won on the track. And in the center of that, you'll find the St. Jude logo. And Brody was inspired, of course, by his hero and all of his success, but then also of his off-the-track success as well. Mom tagged Ryan Dungey on Instagram with this picture, and Matt from our team saw it and thought, well, let's send Brody a little thank you note. So we sent him a little care package thanking him for speaking on our behalf and inviting him to come to the St. Jude Ride and 5K run, which Ryan started. So Brody, who's from Wisconsin, he agreed, and he came up, and at 8 years old, this is him at 8 years old, at 8 years old, he fundraised the very first year $2,000. Asking friends, family, mom and dad. Year 2, at 9 years old, he brought in $3,000. Year 3 brought in $8,000. And then just this past July at the St. Jude Ride and 5K, he brought us $21,000 tapping into all of the businesses in the area that he's from. So I would like to close and ask you a question. So when you contemplate Brian Banks and the question that was asked of him, when someone asks you who you are you like him and answer, and like me, answer, Brian Banks, your name. Do you say where you work or what you do? And if so, or if you've never even asked yourself that question, I guess I would challenge you to think about what are the inspirations behind what you do, who in your life, what are the experiences that you've had that are motivating you to do something, and what are they telling you to do? And I would just ask that you go ahead and do that and take that on. So who are you?
Thank you. Questions? Questions for Amanda?
Is everyone trying to wipe away the tears? You don't want to do that whole trying to ask a question while you're crying a little bit, right? How many times have you met Marlo?
I have not met Marlo. I've been in the same room as her a number of times. I met her brother and her sister and her grandson, or not grandson, but nephew. But not met Marlo. But she's active. She serves as our National Outreach Director. You'll see her on the commercials, asking during the holidays for you to give, where you see the St. Jude logo.
Does she come here often?
She comes to the Twin Cities some, yes. She has friends here in the Twin Cities, but then she also has been here as a part of our partnership with various corporations like Target and Best Buy and a few other partners that we have here.
And Jerome Mills.
What's that?
And Jerome Mills.
Not General Mills.
Also.
No, not as a corporate partner. We'd like to have General Mills as a corporate partner. Shameless
Well,
plug.
maybe she was there trying to get
Right.
them on board.
Yeah.
I heard she was there.
Oh, that's good. And she's been called to speak on a number of occasions, accepting awards. And she was here. We have a partnership with a number of different sororities and fraternities. And then a few years back, she came and accepted an award on behalf of her family here in the Twin Cities. Yeah.
Do you do anything to publicize or talk about your research when you're doing? Because I know that's a huge component. It's not just the treatments; it's the fact that you guys are actually cutting edge.
We try to tell that story as best we can. For a market like Minneapolis, St. Paul, where we are a fair distance from the hospital, that's an important component. You know, people want to know how St. Jude impacts the local medical community because, you know, local hospitals are really vital to our community and important in our, you know, we encourage people to continue to support them. We're different than that. We're helping to further the research that can allow those local hospitals to utilize and treat patients locally. So we do try to tell that as much we can throughout, you know, various speaking engagements to the media. And then actually the Minova Health Summit is coming up in October at the Depot now. And Dr. Downing, who's the CEO of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, is going to be speaking at that and talking in particular about our research and our plan to grow significantly our global impact.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
So as you're doing all this good work, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
How do you respond to no?
Well, I think that's a really good question. Everyone's going to be motivated to do something in different ways. And I guess we just honor the way that they feel like it's impactful for them to give back or give to their community. And oftentimes we don't always take no as no, it's just not yet. So persistence is important. You know, but we want to encourage people to do something when it feels right in their heart. And if it doesn't, you know, we appreciate your time and can move on. But sometimes it's a not yet that we revisit if we feel like we really need their support in a certain capacity. Good question. I've never been asked that question. Yeah.
What's a typical length of stay for a child? And like, do they come to you like right away, or have they tried something else and it hasn't worked, and so they're looking for different answers?
It varies. It depends on the type of cancer that they have or type of disease that they have, because St. Jude is studying not just cancers, but other deadly diseases. And so it really varies. As a part of our acceptance policy, they need to be referred by a physician. And so they likely have already consulted with that physician. Sometimes they've had treatment not work and they've relapsed, and this is the second go round with a certain cancer, and we might see them. Once they are to be accepted, though, they can't be currently in a treatment plan. They have to finish that treatment plan all the way through. And so the length of stay can vary. We had a local patient here in the Twin Cities. Drew, actually you saw a picture of his mom speaking at one of our events. Drew was a unique story in that he would travel back and forth to the hospital every 3 months. And so he would only be there for a very brief amount of time. But some of our patients, specifically our leukemia patients, will be there for a long, extended period of time. That treatment can be upwards of 3 years. And so we have 3 different housing facilities on campus that can accommodate for those patients. We've got short, medium, and long-term stay. Target House is our longest stay facility, of course, provided generously by the work of Target. And that's an apartment-style living facility where families will have all the comforts of home, away from home, two bedrooms, a full kitchen, a living room, because we want them to experience life outside of the hospital. I think a lot of people will be surprised that we have very limited beds in the hospital. There's only 78 beds. And so we want our patients, cancer is primarily treated on an outpatient basis, So we want them to really experience life and do all of the things that might give them a little more joy than sitting in a hospital room. And so having those housing facilities is important. We're just about to break ground on a new housing facility, much needed because we're pretty much at capacity right now. That will give us even more space for families that are larger. I think we're going up to 3-bedroom housing facilities there.
Where is that you're speaking to?
All on campus. It's all within our campus in Memphis.
Meaning Memphis.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you do about, if anything, about education for the children and their siblings.
That's a good question. We actually have a school on campus. We've talked to a lot of parents, and when a child is diagnosed, the last thing they think about is the schoolwork. Like the parents will be like, I don't care about any of the schoolwork, getting out of school, whatever it takes to get you well again. But what we found is that the patients actually crave that normalcy. And when they come back to their home and are integrating back with students their own age, it's important for them to be at the same level as them. So we have we're actually expanding the program right now, and I can't recall, Betsy, you might know from our team here, how many teachers we have on staff. I think we have 3 or so right now. I'm not sure on the exact number, but we do have a school on campus, and they work really closely with the teachers back home and making sure that they're doing the classwork and the coursework that is needed to keep them on par. And the siblings too, yeah. If there's a need for the siblings, absolutely. If the siblings are with for that extended stay, they'll absolutely have all of the resources. That's, we're not just treating the patient, we're treating an entire family. And it's not just the patient who is going through cancer diagnosis. And so our social workers are really careful to make sure that everyone in the family is cared for. Yeah.
So you all do a lot of events nationally, a lot of different types. When you're doing events, what are like the most impactful for the patients, for the fundraising? Like what are the things you guys focus on the most?
Well, they all serve different purposes. There are events that will fundraise and generate a lot of revenue, which is a really vital part of what we do. It costs a lot of money to operate St. Jude on a daily basis. And so the fundraisers that we do are important, but then they also might serve an important piece as far as bringing awareness to the work that we do. And so we measure that return on investment using, the key performance indicators that we might have to determine if they are successful, if they're serving the need. And to your point, we have so many different types of fundraisers. We want to give everyone an opportunity to engage with us where they live, work, and play. And that can start as young as elementary school, where we've got fundraisers in the elementary school, all the way through high school and college, and then our dinner events. And then ultimately, our goal is that we've developed a relationship with our donor that they give the ultimate gift, and that's their legacy through a bequest. And so meeting them where they are is important, which is why we have the vast number of different types of fundraisers.
I don't know if you're able to speak to this, but since you're a nonprofit, correct, you probably can. What's your daily or your yearly GO, general operating?
The latest, I'm depending on my staff to know the latest number. I want to say is it 2.3? 2.8? $2.8 million a day.
And that's national. That's in the United States, correct?
$0.8 million
a day. And so did you say 81 cents is the latest? It changes constantly. So 81 cents of every dollar goes directly to the needs of the hospital. And so, when you're giving to St. Jude, that your money is going exactly where you want it to go. But yeah, that number is staggering, but the work that we're doing is so important. And we are growing our international outreach. That's a commitment that we've made, and I know you and I were talking about that. That's important in the work that we're doing to not just bring the cures from the United States, but to bring to the world. We were speaking prior to this, and the survival rates in much of the developing world for childhood cancer is where we were in 1962 at 20%. And if they're even diagnosed. And so we are working diligently to grow that survival rate. And our doctors have made a pledge to make that a priority. And so we're bringing doctors from all of our partner sites around the world to St. Jude to train with our doctors, as well as our fundraising staff too, because we want them to be self-sufficient as well, and training them to do that is important.
So given that $2.3 million a day, are pharmaceutical companies then providing the treatments at nonprofit, or are they providing it at, and just a question.
I don't know if you even touched on it, that families at St. Jude will never receive a bill for anything.
Right.
So when a patient is treated at St. Jude, their family won't receive a bill for anything, from the treatment, the travel, the housing, the food, it's all covered. And we do utilize insurance if families have insurance. I can't specifically answer from a pharmaceutical standpoint. I don't believe they give discounts if they even have the drug. And so that's the challenge, is that that they may not even have the drug because they're focused on adult cancers more so than pediatric cancer. There's a big disparity between the two. And so we actually have a good manufacturing facility on site at St. Jude that develops drugs.
So
And
that's the piece I didn't know. So then the research is coming internal, and then that's going straight to treatment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's good, yeah.
You mentioned the different sort of activities you have going on, like overseas outreach and that sort of thing. For donations, do people ever earmark things? I want this to go to your outreach into Africa or whatever. Like, do you have special funds or special streams for?
Yeah, you can,
aspects of the whole.
There are certain donors that will designate their giving, and usually that's handled through our gift planning team that works with major gifts. And there certainly is a way for you to designate where it is you want your gift to go within our operating system. So if international is something that appeals to you, absolutely we have a team that can help you bring that to life.
I wonder if you ever find that you actually can get sort of more, like a higher percentage of yes, or more money if it's specified versus just a general gift to the organization.
It's all depending on what the donor wants and understanding what their needs are and helping to deliver on that. So our teams are really well trained to sit down with the donor and understand what motivates their giving, and through understanding that can determine what's the best ask to make of them. Or to share with them all of the work that we do and better understand what it is they want to be a part of. And that can come through designating their funds or through the different types of volunteerism that they participate in, if there's something that specifically speaks to them.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Wonderful. Thank you for doing
Yeah,
this.
thank you.
If you've not been here before and want to leave a card with Austin back there, we have future events, as I mentioned, around chocolate, and then Red Wing Shoes is coming the month after that, which would be November, which would be interesting. So that it's a wonderful monthly event. Come hang out, think, enjoy. Thank you, Amanda. That was amazing. Very well done. Another one.